Ruth chapter 3. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash thyself therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor, but make not thyself known unto the man, until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be, when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said unto her, All that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down into the floor, and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. And she came softly, and uncovered his feet, and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid, and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman, howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee. As the Lord liveth, lie down until the morning. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, Let it not be known that a woman came unto the floor. Also he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave he me, for he said to me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. Then said she, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall, for the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. So that is Ruth chapter 3. Now we're going to go back and discuss it verse by verse. So the first verse says, Then Naomi her mother-in-law said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it may be well with thee? So Naomi is wanting Ruth to have a permanent home. She's wanting her to find rest and security in a husband and a home of her own. Verse 2 says, And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast. Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. So Boaz is their close relative. Now the Hebrew word of that is Goel. I've heard it pronounced Goel or Goal, but it means redeemer. A person who, as the nearest relative of someone, is charged with the duty of restoring that person's rights and avenging done to him or her. So they're responsible for carrying on the family name by marrying a childless widow as well. If we go to Deuteronomy 25:5, it says, If brethren dwell together, and one of them die, and have no child, the wife of the dead shall not marry without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her, and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of an husband's brother unto her. And it shall be that the firstborn which she beareth shall succeed in the name of his brother which is dead, that his name be not put out of Israel. Now, if there was not a brother living, it would go to the nearest relative, and that would be Boaz. So, it's important to remember that the kinsman redeemer does not legally get to claim the property or the child. So, essentially, the kinsman redeemer would marry, let's say, Ruth. Their child that they have together is considered her dead husband's child. So, that child, the first son that's born, would get the property, and the kinsman redeemer would not get the property or to, legally call that child their own. Okay, so now it was talking about winnowing, and that is when you take the broken stalks and grain that were collected, and then you throw them up into the air. So the chaff would be blown away by the wind, but the heavy grain would fall to the floor at the winnower's feet. Verse 3 says, Wash thyself therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. So she's saying, wash yourself, put on your best clothes, put on some perfume, go to the threshing floor, but don't make yourself known to Boaz until he's done eating and drinking. Verse 4 says, And it shall be when he lieth down, that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie. Thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what to do. So, whenever he lays down and goes to sleep, go in, uncover his feet, and lay down at his feet. Now, that sounds like a really odd thing to do, to uncover someone's feet. But in this culture, this was nothing that was meant to be sexual. So when she goes to him and uncover his feet and lays down at his feet, this was demonstrating the role of a servant. They're there waiting for the master's command. And Ruth came to claim a right. It was her right that Boaz be her kinsman redeemer. It was the law in Deuteronomy that we just read. But Naomi is really wise in instructing her to go to Boaz as like a humble servant instead of going to him and demanding. Because remember, she has worked in his field for months at this point, and they have gotten to know one another, and we already knew, like from their first meeting, that he respected her, she respected him. So Naomi was really wise in telling Ruth to go to Boaz as a humble servant. So that was what that was demonstrating. She's laying at his feet, laying at the master's feet like a servant would do. And we talked about in the Bible study group, some of the women brought up, we're talking about Boaz being a redeemer, but Jesus is our ultimate redeemer. And, we lay everything at his feet. We go to him humbly, or we should, as a servant, and lay everything down at his feet. So everything that is going on right now with Boaz being the kinsman redeemer, it's all pointing to Jesus Christ being our ultimate redeemer. And we'll probably talk more about that next week with chapter 4. But that's important to remember as we're reading about this. So, verses 5 and 6. And she said unto her, All that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down unto the floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. So, Ruth agrees to what Naomi is suggesting because she trusts Ruth. But I also don't think that Naomi had to push very hard for this. I'm sure that Ruth already had feelings for Boaz. He extended such kindness to her, and he was a true man of God, and he was an excellent boss. He was actually out there working in the fields with his worker. So she had a lot of respect for him. I'm sure Naomi didn't have to push very hard for that suggestion to go through. Okay. Verse 7, And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn, and she came softly and uncovered his feet and laid her down. So, after Boaz has went to sleep, then I can just imagine Ruth going softly, just really quietly uncovering his feet. We were talking about how I wonder how Boaz didn't wake up, but he's been there working all day, and he's probably extremely tired. He's eaten and drunk, so he's really tired. But we were also talking about, why was Boaz even there sleeping at all? And if you go to 1 Samuel 23 and 1, it says, Then they told David, saying, Behold, the Philistines fight against Keilah, and they rob the threshing floor. So Boaz was there to ward off any thieves that might steal the grain. And we see that later on at different times in the Bible where it talks about people robbing the threshing floors. So Boaz was there. Even though he was like the owner of the field, he was there with his workers. He stayed there with them. He slept there, making sure no thieves took the grain. And that's why he was there asleep that night that Ruth went up to him. Okay, so Ruth did exactly as she was told, and now she has to lay there and wait for Boaz to wake up. And I can just imagine everything that's running through her mind. She has to be wondering when he's going to wake up, what's he going to say, just all these things running through her mind. Verse 8 says, And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. So he wakes up at midnight, and remember, he's there to keep away thieves. So he's afraid when he wakes up. He feels someone's at his feet, and then behold, it's a woman. So I'm sure he was very surprised. Verse 9 says, And he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. So he's saying, who are you? Who goes there? And Ruth does not waste any time at all. She says, I'm Ruth, and I want you to spread your skirt over me because you are my near kinsman. And we need to talk about what that means to spread therefore thy skirt over thee. So it was an ancient custom where a man covers the woman that he wants to marry with a covering, and this signifies that he has taken her under his protection. And there's even some Jewish people still today that when they are getting married, they will put a covering over the woman, and that signifies that he is taking her under his protection. So I really like this in Ezekiel 16:8, and this is referring to God covering Israel and entering into a covenant together. So Ezekiel 16:8. Now when I passed by thee and looked upon thee, behold, thy time was the time of love, and I spread my skirt over thee, and covered thy nakedness. Yea, I swear unto thee, and entered into a covenant with thee, saith the Lord God, and thou becamest mine. So I just think that is so beautiful that it's that same language that God uses with his people. He's saying, I've covered my skirt over thee. You are mine. I'm protecting you. And that is what Ruth is saying to Boaz. Spread your skirt over me. Take me under your protection. And another version of that verse says, spread your wings over me. So protect me as a husband is to protect a wife. And a spouse should protect one another. They should protect. They should cover each other with their wings. Okay, so verse 10. And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether rich or poor. So Boaz is saying, you have shown more kindness to me now than you did at the beginning, because Ruth has been really loyal to her family. We know she's loyal to Naomi. She has worked all these months. She has not went after younger men, but she has gone to Boaz to raise up a son in her dead husband's memory, so their lineage, their name can live on. And we are reminded again that Boaz was probably quite a bit older than Ruth. He calls her my daughter again, and he's saying, you didn't go after younger men, you came to me. So maybe Boaz didn't even suggest being the kinsman redeemer, because maybe he thought Ruth wasn't, he might have wanted her to suggest it first. I'm not really sure about that, but we're just reminded again that Boaz was probably quite a bit older than her. Verse 11, And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou requirest, for all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. So he's saying, fear not, I will do everything you ask for, because everybody knows that you're a virtuous woman. And if you go back to chapter 2, Boaz's servant calls Ruth a Moabitish damsel. So, at first she's just Ruth, the Moabitish damsel, the woman who came from Moab. And now here we are a chapter later, just a few months later, and he's saying everybody in the city, everybody knows you're a virtuous woman. So how quickly the Lord can change everything around. We don't have to be labeled as something our whole lives. God changes who we are and what we're known as, and he changes the way that people look at us. So I just love that he's really complimenting her, saying that everyone knows you're a virtuous woman. And whenever we go to Proverbs 31, let's start at verse 10 and go all the way through to 31, and this is telling us what a virtuous woman is. So Proverbs 31, verses 10 through 31. Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeketh wool and flax, and worketh willingly with her hands. She is like the merchant ship, she bringeth her food from afar. She riseth also while it is yet night, and giveth meat to her household, and a portion to her maidens. She considereth a field, and buyeth it. With the fruit of her hands she planteth a vineyard. She girdeth her loins with strength, and strengtheneth her arms. She perceiveth that her merchandise is good. Her candle goeth not out by night. She layeth her hands to the spindle, and her hands hold the distaff. She stretcheth out her hand to the poor, yea, she reacheth forth her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She maketh herself coverings of tapestry, her clothing is silk and purple. Her husband is known in the gates, when he sitteth among the elders of the land. She maketh fine linen, and selleth it, and delivereth girdles unto the merchant. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She openeth her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness. She looketh well to the ways of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness. Her children arise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praiseth her. Many daughters have done virtuously, but thou excellest them all. Favor is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman that feareth the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. So Boaz is saying, Ruth, you're a virtuous woman, and everybody knows it. Verse 12 says, And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman, howbeit there is a kinsman nearer than I. So Ruth does not know that there is a man that's actually of closer kin to her dead husband than Boaz is. So he actually has the right to be the kinsman redeemer before Boaz does. So I'm sure that that came as a shock to Ruth, and I would say that she was pretty disappointed to hear that. So let's go ahead and go to verse 13. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning, that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then will I do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth. Lie down until morning. So Boaz is saying, if he will not be the kinsman redeemer, then I will be. And I think that just shows Boaz's character. He wants to do this the right way. He wants everything to be lawful and God's way. So he has to go to this other man that has more of a right than he does to be the kinsman redeemer. So verse 14 says, And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, Let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. And the NLT version says, she got up before light so no one could recognize her. So Boaz didn't want anybody knowing that there was a woman on the threshing floor. He was protecting her reputation. And, I was thinking about that. Why wouldn't he just send her on? Why did she lay there all night? But it was nighttime. She was a woman alone. He wasn't going to send her off into the night and, walk home alone. So she leaves at light. I'm sure they didn't sleep at all that night. Boaz is thinking, this virtuous woman has come to me and wants me to marry her and be the kinsman redeemer. And Ruth is thinking, I'm sure she's surprised that there is another man that could actually be the kinsman redeemer, not Boaz. So I'm sure they had a sleepless night laying there. Verse 15, Also he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. So Boaz never let her leave empty-handed. The first time he met her, she did not leave empty-handed, and he certainly wasn't going to send her away empty-handed now. Verses 16 and 17. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave he me, for he said to me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. So I'm sure Naomi, while Ruth and Boaz probably had a sleepless night, I'm sure Naomi did as well. She wants to know, when Ruth comes home, like, how did it go, daughter? Tell me everything. So verse 17 says, Then said she, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall, for the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. So now all they have to do is wait and see what's going to happen that day. Will Ruth have to marry this other kinsman redeemer, or will she be able to marry Boaz, who we're sure she's in love with, Now they just have to wait. So next week we're going to do Ruth chapter 4, and that will finish up the book of Ruth. And I'm most excited about chapter 4 because it just ties everything together, and we're going to get to discuss the true Redeemer a little bit more.